Before watching, make sure to watch the park review in both parts of the roller coaster reviews for this park right here and here. Warning, this video is not suitable for some viewers. Also, I may have used some of your clips in this video. Alright, so a good chunk of you saw how I got myself to Safag. So you're probably wondering, how does he get to Knott's Berry Farm? Is the park in his backyard? Well, I wish I had a park in my backyard, but all I have is a shed, a bunch of green, and a tiny bit of hurricane debris.
This sucks!
But if you really want to know how I get to Knott's, well, let's just say it's easier done than said. Remember kids, don't try this at home. Try it at a friend's house instead. Whee! We're here! I have about 30 more rides to get to, so let's enter the park and quickly get through all of them. Alright, so to start off the ride reviews, let's go to WindSeeker. Or not, as I don't want to get myself in a mess of former rides, so let's start in Camp Snoopy instead. If you have seen my coaster reviews for here, then you know that I tend to score any roller coaster as long as I know my experience on them. Hell, I would have given the park's kiddie coaster a score if I remembered most of what happened on it. For the other rides though, it's a real hit or miss situation if I want to give a ride a score, and outside of the coasters, I have no desire to give a score to any of the rides in Camp Snoopy, and I barely remember riding half of these, so I'm not going to slowly go ride by ride, and instead, I'm going to do things my way and review every Camp Snoopy ride in 10 words or less. Yes, I realize that this isn't my very own idea, but it doesn't matter! And yes, I'm also doing this for the 2 coasters I've already reviewed. So let's waste no more time and go from the park entrance to Fiesta Village in style. Better than Lex Luthor's drop ride, don't at me. This would have been an epic name for a boomerang. Commence World War I flashbacks. I always forget this ride is here. The best part is the extra views of Sierra Sidewinder, the only real thrill seekers prep for Tatsu. Psst, hey Knott, grown-up version of this please? Didn't they already build this ride 2 other times? This would have been an epic name for an SLC. Hello Claustrophobia. Really roaring river rapid running ride. First a dirt race, the next stop, Talladega. Yay, doggy! I like the nighttime lights on this. Is this related to Rocky Mountain construction? And that's all of the rides in Knott's Camp Snoopy. The rest of this area is all up to you. Have fun, younglings! Now that we've escaped from Camp Snoopy, it's time to have a fiesta! Not that big of a fiesta, but enough of a fiesta to have a good time. Entonces comencemos una revolución. I'll be honest, I have only ridden this ride once, way back in 2013. Damn, has it really been 6 years since 2013? Anyway, with all that said, I can say that I have a good enough experience to thoroughly review this ride. So let's get right into it. La Revolucion opened in 2003 as Knott's Berry Farm's only swinging pendulum ride. This ride was manufactured by Chance Morgan, so you won't be confused on whether this is from one or the other. Now on to what you can expect with this ride. After waiting a widely varying amount of time, you swing and spin. Nothing too unique about it. Now with these claw types of swinging pendulum rides, they normally spin around at a shorter height while you get a bit of air, unlike the normal swinging frisbees that get as much air as possible while spinning around at a much lower rate. But if it does spin around a lot more than it should, it doesn't spin around as much as rides like La Revolucion. With this much spinning, it's like a roulette on a river rapids ride, but instead of wanting to get wet, riders here would want to get the most air, which is, of course, looking straight down at 65 feet in the air. It may look simplistic compared to other flat rides, but simplicity does not mean the ride is bland. Like how Montezuma's Revenge has shown us, very few things are going on, but those few things make up a pure adrenaline rush. La Revolucion receives 7 out of 10. A fine work of art for the flat ride industry. But now that we've revolutionized our way into Knott's Berry Farm's flat rides, let's spin into another ride that spins. Hey, maybe this ride will exceed the quality of my punny attitude. Hell, like I would know. I have not ridden Soul Spin, and I've been to the park when this ride was open and operational. So what's my problem with not riding this attraction? 3 words. Irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS for just 3 letters. What this means is that my stomach is much more sensitive to basically everything, especially a ton of spinning. And just looking at Soul Spin, dizzying is this ride's middle name. Then again, this ride has a short ride cycle compared to other top scans. But if you like to spin and flip either way, then you'll love this ride. Just remember to get there before it breaks down. But the breakdowns of this ride are nothing compared to... Yes, that's right. I have ridden one of the most broken rides in Knott's Berry Farm history. I have only ridden this 3 times at the park, but I am lucky to even ride this in its original park at least once. WindSeeker originally opened at Knott's in 2011, and here's an interesting story. I was taking a random visit to the park in the summer of 2011. My mindset for that day was to have a good, fun day at the park. But little did I know that this one random summer was the first ever operational day for WindSeeker. Younger me was thinking, wow, WindSeeker is actually open out of nowhere? That is so cool! Actually, younger me was thinking this. WindSeeker! WindSeeker wasn't the only ride of its type to open up in 2011, as 3 others opened up and still operate at Canada's Wonderland, Kings Island, and the one and only Cedar Point, with 2 others also opening from the ground up. Every WindSeeker attraction stands tall at 301 feet, swinging riders at a top speed of 30 miles per hour with incredible views for about 3 minutes. Give or take depending on what the ride is feeling like. These rides are like swinging observation towers, and it goes to show. Whenever I ride one of these, I really enjoy the experience. You don't need a high-octane thrill to have a good ride. All you need here is a ton of height and a bit of wind blowing in your face. Oh, and you also get a bit of high-flying music while you're up there. If you are a fan of rides that go really high, and I mean higher than accelerator high, you will love riding WindSeeker. Not the one at Knott's, that one is long gone, but not completely gone. This exact ride still lives on at Worlds of Fun in Missouri, so lucky you, Missourians. But lucky for us Californians, we have 3 RMC coasters.
Behold, you're a winner!
Overall, WindSeeker was a really fun ride at Knott's, and I'm glad I got on this multiple times before it decided to shut itself down and get moved to the middle of the country. So if you're riding this at Worlds of Fun, just imagine you are sightseeing the Southern Californian skyline, because you could actually see Disneyland and Los Angeles from up there. Oh, and don't be turned away from this ride for being scarily high, because this ride is much more relaxing than it looks. The Knott's Berry Farm WindSeeker receives 7 out of 10. Good frickin' riddance. But now that we've got the big rides in Fiesta Village out of the way, it is now time to ride through its much smaller rides. Hey, it's the Mad Tea Party, but it's in Glen, Mexico! I haven't ridden this personally, but I know how these spinning teacup rides go, and I will barely say anything to save my stomach. Just take a spin for yourself. You may or may not regret it. Yay! Swinging! Too bad the ride cycle is pretty short and you don't swing too high very much, even though you can kick yourself up for some decent air. Anyways, it's pretty good. Next. I love me a good carousel, but from nearly 2 decades of going to this park, I have not desired myself to ride this. But it's what you would expect from a carousel anyway. Nothing but galloping around in a circle because you are too wimpy to get on Silver Bullet. Ah, what a century-old classic. Next. Well, hello there, WindSeeker Jr. This might just be my current favorite ride in Fiesta Village not named Montezuma's Revenge. Like WindSeeker, this ride is very relaxing, and if you see me at any park, you might find me riding one of these about once or twice that day. I really like these kinds of rides, and if you're a theme park who doesn't have one of these rides yet,
Get one now!
Alright then, we are over halfway done here. Take your sombreros off, because we're hitting the beach side. Or at least a discount beach side. Either way, it's drop tower time. 1998 was not just the year when Ghost Rider opened at Knott, but it was also the year when a certain drop ride by SNS Worldwide started looking over the park from hundreds of feet up. Supreme Scream opened up as the world's tallest vertical drop ride, and held that title for, damn, only a few months? Those darn Aussies taking our records. Supreme Scream is currently the park's tallest ride, with 255 feet of height for the riders to go up. The entire height of the ride's tower is 312 feet, which is an absolute giga unit for a tower attraction. The theme of Supreme Scream is screaming of supreme amounts, I suppose. Look, if the theme of the ride isn't that good, then chances are that the rest of the ride is good. Once you've waited in a not so long line, mainly because this ride is cramped between a strata drop ride and a drop ride that stands so incredibly still that it's practically invisible to the very eye, it's time to wuss out. Because do you expect us humans to drop 25 stories on such a skinny tower? But if you did man up instead of man out, you are greeted with a small seat and a pretty open restraint. This combination would not go too well with your average Joe coaster, but this right here is a drop tower, so the small and open combo will really get your adrenaline pumping. So you're all locked in with the heavy workout restraints, and then you launch! But oh, it is only a casual lift now. Once you're 255 feet in the air, it's time for silence. Just a few small seconds of silence. At least until... Do you ever hear some people say that the suspense of a ride is scarier than the ride itself? Well, that sure as hell is the case here, and then some. Whoever designed these... what are these bouncy drop rides called? Turbo drop towers? Huh, okay. Whoever designed these turbo drop rides probably thought to make the most insanely frightening experience out there. Just a bit of stationary waiting and a quick drop. And I really mean a quick drop. Time to make comparisons again. The main element of your average drop ride contains a drop all the way from top to bottom at the speed of gravity before the brakes kick in. Although rides like Supreme Scream don't just let you drop like a giant rock being let go from a bridge. Instead, the ride decides to launch you down like, yeah! Fuck gravity! This ride supposedly sends you downwards with -1 G's of force. But the airtime is so abrupt that it doesn't really feel too much like it, but it's still better than the drops on most other drop towers. If this were almost any other drop ride, the ride would be over after just one free fall. But not here. Free falling is nothing but a start to the exhilaration, whereas the rest of the ride is only bouncing up and down. Good. These bounces may not add too much, but if you really try to lift yourself out of your seat, you realize that the bounces are a really good few moments of 0G. And that's pretty much Supreme Scream. A lot of height, a lot of force, a lot of floating, and a very misleading name. Supreme Scream? Now, the most I have ever gotten from this ride is a very abrupt yell. Although, I would do a Supreme Scream of excitement, because this ride is actually really fun. At least if you like drop towers. Supreme Scream receives 8 out of 10. The park's tallest attraction definitely has a high amount of greatness. Literally though, how do I even get myself high up here? I know how, to confuse you all into a plot hole loop. Actually, I have no clue myself, so I guess it's time for a leap of faith. Ah! God! The pain! The damn pain in my legs! Not from the fall, but from the fact that I still haven't fully recovered from riding Coast Rider. But seriously, fellas, don't be a dumbass like me. Do something productive like, I don't know, spinning a lot, and then spinning some more, and more, and more, and... First opened in 1999, Wipeout is a conveniently named Chance Rides Wipeout attraction. Damn, Knott was really poppin' in the late 90s. But then again, they really weren't. Since we have another smaller ride on our hands, let's quickly hop in and hop out. So, the lap bars automatically come down? Cool. Although, as a slightly taller person, I do have to cross my legs for the restraint to fit. But cool. Oh god, this is already a lot of spinning, and we haven't really started the ride yet. When the ride does really start, you have a large mix of forces ahead, whether it's positive, negative, and most importantly, lateral. Speaking of which, for the ride's finale, you have constant strong laterals at full force, which tells you that this ride is not for the weaker stomach. And yeah, that's about it. Got a whole lot of spinning with even more spinning on top of that. So basically, this ride lets you spin until you wipe out. Ha 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 ha. 6 out of 10. Enough with this ride. There are much better rides to get on. So, next. Ah yes, Sky Cabin. What a Knott's Berry Farm classic. It would be even more of a classic with the parachute jump in place, but what a classic. I love how these gyro observation towers simply still exist. They are becoming much more rare by the year, and I'm glad that Knott still has theirs. All these rides do is slowly take you up until you reach the top, stay up there for a little bit, and slowly take you back down. All while slowly circling around the tower in a cabin. It may sound like a much tamer version of WindSeeker to some of you. If so, firstly, you're wrong, as WindSeeker is actually a more thrilling version of this. And secondly, if you miss WindSeeker, don't be, as this ride is also a tall, relaxing ride that spins around a bit. So don't be a person who is in a twist of wanting WindSeeker coming back to the park like me. Can someone please fly me to Missouri? No score is going to be given to Sky Cabin. Just hop on and relax from nearly 200 feet up. There's not much to it. Just be positive that this ride is for sure running like it's intended. Because Intamin. It's always because Intamin. Okay, we only have 10 rides left. Next up, let's go a bit less broken. Just a bit, I promise. I regret and completely don't regret a few things. The thing I regret is calling the model of flying scooters better than Gigas. Which, I know, my opinion is wrong, yada yada. I get it, because I agree. Gigas are actually superior to flying scooters. Just letting that out there. Because there is one Giga coaster that I would call one of the best rides in the world. But I'm gonna stop comparing David to Goliath now and get on with what Knott's Berry Farm's David has to offer. And surprise, surprise, going around in a circle. I mean, this type of ride isn't just going around in a circle. You and maybe a buddy are in your very own vehicle. And in that vehicle, you have control of swaying yourself around at moderate speeds. And trust me on this one, This is actually more fun than it looks. Take a couple spins around, doing a few swings at whatever direction your adrenaline feels, and you get off, feeling so satisfied by a family ride. And then probably hopping on the ride directly adjacent to the gliders. Pacific Scrambler, formerly known as Wilderness Scrambler, formerly known as Headspin, and formerly known as Whirlpool, has been a part of the Knott's legacy since 1976. If you have ridden any of these Scrambler rides, then you know that they have their own unique twist for your average spinning ride. The main arms of the ride spin one way, while the other arms of the ride spin the other way. It's simple, but pretty effective. The main focus on these rides are laterals, and lots of them. You are pretty much on your side for all of the ride's varying cycle. The ride's manufacturer, Eli Bridge Company, not only came up with an exciting ride to get on, but also a very enjoyable ride to look at. Watching the riders go around, sometimes making a very close interaction. Yeah, more of these too, please. Go ahead and whirl until you hurl, because I'll gladly sit back with some popcorn in hand. Knott's has more of my favorite types of rides? Sweet! I love a bit of bumper cars no matter where. Bumper cars that act like a speedway with nothing but crashes? Check. Bumper cars that are not fast, but are essentially one open free-for-all? Check. Bumper cars that try to kill you for being way too fast and unpadded? Big freaking check. The last example, but it's an open free-for-all? Sign my waiver and get me the hell on! Knott's opened their bumper cars sometime in the 70s along with the old Knott's Berry Tales, and let me tell ya, as a big fan of bumper cars, the Wheeler Dealer bumper cars are very pathetic. Just take a look here. Look how slow these cars are going. I could find more excitement from a rolling chair. And don't give me that go one way, no head-on collision shtick. That's the reason why my lips are violently moving right now. Do all you want with your bumper cars, Knott, but this ride is best if the rules are broken. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Hey, now it's fun. Thanks for the bumper cars, Knott. Man, I love the pace we are tackling these rides at. So with that, it's finally time to go dark. In a rides type of sense. Now that's what I'm talking about. And now, it's finally time to get out of the boardwalk and settle into Ghost Town, where we have a river rapids ride. Too bad I haven't actually ridden this, or the previous Bigfoot rapids, so let's move on to the next best thing. The Ghost Town and Calico Railroad is the perfect Knott's attraction for all you train lovers out there. This ride has circled around the west end of the park since 1952 and continues to impress its guests to this day. This is not just a train ride, but it also acts like a show, as you have all sorts of actors going up and down the carriages. This really spices things up for a train ride, which some may consider short. And if you want to try to get a chance, try getting a tour of this roundhouse right between Fiesta Village and the boardwalk. It's pretty darn cool, and it has some neat history behind it. I don't really have much more to say about the Ghost Town and Calico Railroad, mainly because this ride is pretty short and I'm not a massive train junkie, but it gives some good views and it has a really good aesthetic to it. Now with that done, let's take a look at what travels on the east end of the park. Horsies! This might just be the most unique ride in the park, because instead of being driven by mechanical power, the Butterfield Stagecoach is driven by horsepower. Horsepower. All this ride does is put you in a carriage and carry you around the east side of the park by horses, which who doesn't love horses? Well, except you. So enjoy your great views of the park while on the ride. Or if you're off the ride, have a great view of the horses. Getting off the topic of horses, let's get back to trains again. Because there's another ride here for you train fanatics out there. And also a ride for the faked mountain fanatics too. The Calico Mine Ride is one of the most aesthetically impressive rides at Knott's Berry Farm just by looking at the main facade. You see that? That right there is rock work. Sweet, glorious rock work. You get in line and there's more rock work. And on the ride, you are encaved inside the beautiful rock work. Oh, I'm so getting over myself, I'm sorry. This is a train ride that has much smaller trains than the Calico Railroad, and you'd think you would normally sit like with Big Thunder Mountain, but nope. You are circled around in a carriage with no restraint, no seatbelt, you just have to not be stupid to survive this ride. But before we begin, we have a spoiler warning, because these classic dark rides are best experienced in person. Once everything is situated, it's time to trek inside the mountain. If you thought the facade outside was pretty, the ride inside is even better. You got glimmering geysers, shiny caverns, a huge well filled with animatronic workers, and more. Speaking of animatronics, this was one of the first attractions to feature audio animatronics, even before Disneyland opened the Enchanted Tiki Room in 1963. And this ride is all thanks to Bud Hurlbut, which Disney came to him and took major inspiration from his work, making some of the world's most legendary rides later on. Thanks, Bud, especially for your work with this ride. It has many beautiful scenes, classic animatronics, and a chain lift hill? Sure. This lift hill is used to build upwards to the ride's finale, where riders speed down the inside of the mountain with some great updated climactic effects. Oh, I forgot to mention, this ride was updated in 2014, and is now better than it ever was before. Too bad Bud isn't here to see this now, because he has made a ride which, in my opinion, still holds up very well to this day. The Calico Mine Ride receives 7 out of 10. And now, we're down to one more ride here. And that ride is none other than Bud Hurlbut's other great creation for the park. Are you ready to get wet? As a collaborative effort by Bud Hurlbut and Aerodynamics, the Timber Mountain Log Ride opened in 1969, exactly 20 years before Disney opened their first ever Splash Mountain at Disneyland. And so I don't have to remind you guys later, another spoiler warning, because it makes sense for dark rides like this. This ride ran in its original state for over 40 years until Knott decided to give this ride a major refurbishment in 2013, which includes brand new audio animatronics. Onto the ride experience, the queue line from Timber Mountain goes by very quickly. What I mean is that the line almost moves continuously because they oftenly keep sending out vehicles. Plus, it has a double station to continuously send out logs when it's crowded at the park. With these log flumes, you sit down kind of awkwardly, but they have no seatbelts, so hallelujah! And now that the ride has started, you already have a lift hill to go up, where you see plenty of audio animatronics at the top before getting into one of the flume parts of the ride, where you go in and around the mountain, eyeing more audio animatronics before it gets very dark, and then, let's say you get a few surprises. Now you're inside the mountain with more animatronics around every corner, then you go up another lift hill with more animatronics, and then the biggest draw of any log flume out there, the big drop. And remember to smile for the camera. The ride splashes down and that's all of what the Timber Mountain Log Ride has to offer. Psych! There is much more to this ride than fluming, dropping, and audio animatronic-ing. For example, you're going in and around a mountain, which means, you guessed it, more rock work. Are you wet yet? Because you should be wet by these splashdowns after both of the ride's drops. Fluming around the mountain, you get a pretty good view of the park where you wouldn't normally see from the ground. Finally, the best part of the ride. It's not dropping, it's not fluming around in the dark, it's not getting a wacky picture on the final drop, it's this.
Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit
Yeah, if you'll excuse me, I'll be skipping out on Ghost Rider and Accelerator so I could ride this all day. Timber Mountain is one of my favorite rides at Knott's and one of my favorite log flumes of all time because it just has everything. End of story. Do not, I repeat, do not miss out on this ride. You'll regret not playing with the sensors yourself. The Timber Mountain Log Ride receives 9 out of 10. I'm glad we concluded with this after reviewing all of Knott's Berry Farm's rides. Whew, that was a lot to get through. So in conclusion to all of this, let's do a final ranking of the rides and coasters, shall we? Now I'm not going to rank all of Knott's Berry Farm's rides, only just the best and worst 5. So starting with the worst 5, we have Pony Express. I don't hate this ride, I really don't. It's just a very short ride, which every single other ride of this type of coaster has fixed. The number 4 worst is Dragon Swing. I don't know, this ride doesn't really take to me that well. Blunder 3 is the Wheeler Dealer Bumper Cars. This ride is pretty lame, but it's still bumper cars, so I'll take it. Runner-up to last is Jaguar. I'm not saying it in that other way again. Mediocrity is this ride's second name. And in dead last by a landslide is Coast Rider. Just keep me away from this ride so I can never ride it again. Please. Now to the 5 best at the park. Starting with the newest ride here. Hang Time. What an enjoyable little ride. I'm so glad Knott's went with adding this. Number 4 is Supreme Scream. What an enjoyable big ride. Number 3 is Accelerator. This will always be one of my favorite coasters, no matter how many more coasters top it in my rankings. As a runner-up, it's the Timber Mountain Log Ride. Yes, I put this over Accelerator, but for good reason. This ride is a purely fantastic classic. And my number 1 favorite ride in all of Knott's Berry Farm is Ghost Rider. If you want to ride a world-class thrill ride, then look no further than Ghost Rider. It's a pure masterpiece. Now that I'm done with everything I need to do at Knott's Berry Farm, it's time to go home and plan more park visits. Thank you for sticking around with me throughout these reviews at Knott's. So if you liked everything, remember to like, share, subscribe, and eat a boysenberry pie. Stay tuned for more stuff from SingleRiderReak, and have a thrilling rest of the day.